The following program contains disturbing images. Viewer discretion is advised.
He is a plain-spoken, loudmouth president who offends a lot. Campaigns of fake news and online attacks against his foes helped propel him to his post.
We watched her online get stripped of her dignity.
But he is also still incredibly popular. This is the reality of Rodrigo Duterte, the president of the Philippines.
It was your greed and your immorality that did you in.
The country he leads is beautiful and complicated and divided and full of stories that serve as warnings for the rest of the world. I'm Adrienne Arsenault. Over the next hour, we'll take you into the sometimes fierce, sometimes loving streets of the Philippines. Let's start with the tale of Tess Flor, a Filipino woman who fell in love with Canadian Robert Hall. They were living a charmed life until the kidnappers came calling.
Tess, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. You're the strongest, most courageous woman I know. Seriously.
As much as Tess Flor's Canadian connection haunts her, creates that shadow that falls over her sometimes, she doesn't want to ever let it go.
Sorry, because every time when I see you, I feel crying.
Cry. I know. Tess,
It's a 15-hour time difference between Tess in the Philippines and Bonice Thomas in British Columbia, so talking isn't always easy.
How are you sleeping? Are you having nightmares or are you sleeping okay?
Actually, sometimes I am still dreaming. I am still dreaming those guys.
Oddly, these two have never actually met, but they must one day. Destiny and death have forever linked them. Robert Hall is the connection. One of two Canadians kidnapped, then beheaded by the terror group Abu Sayyaf last year. Bonice is his sister. Tess, his girlfriend, who was captured alongside him, held until the ugly end.
Keep talking, because it helps, doesn't it?
Tess hasn't talked much, but she's starting.
I am not really 100% free because I am still scared. Sometimes I am still scared.
No.
Can't blame her for that. She remembers what her kidnappers look like, and they know she does. They're still around. She told us not to risk going to her village, that it would be safer to meet in Manila, to share those stories of the big burdens on those tiny shoulders.
Sometimes I regret because I was thinking that I did my best because I did lots of things to help Robert, to save Robert's life, but it's not working.
The tale of Tess and Robert started as a love story. They met online in 2014, then connected in person in the Philippines. There was time with her son, love letters, a ring, and great vacations on his boat, docked right there on an island marina. That's where they were, September 21st, 2015. Around midnight, Robert got up to make popcorn and made an idle but ultimately disastrous move. He turned on a light.
After he turned on the light, we heard banging outside. I saw the faces and in the door of the boat. So there was 4, and they were having guns.
A few boats over, John Ridsdale, coincidentally another Canadian, heard the commotion and rushed to help. The men grabbed him, too, as well as a Norwegian managing the marina. That's them, all 4 hostages now, shoved into boats to be spirited away to one of the more remote southern islands. Tess started to listen to the kidnappers' conversation, knew immediately they were Abu Sayyaf.
I talked to John, I talked to Robert and Charlotte that this is it. This is what I think.
I deliver the message to the Canadian government and to the...
Of course, Abu Sayyaf are notorious for demanding huge ransoms, then murdering those who don't pay up. Tess had to weigh what she would tell Robert and the others.
So you were in this weird spot of having to translate.
Yeah,
for everybody.
Yeah.
She would have to keep it up for months, measure every word she said, don't upset the kidnappers, keep her fellow hostages calm. Robert and John were fixated on one hope, the prospect of a new prime minister. They were thrilled when Trudeau was elected.
John and Robert said, he is a very nice person. I know he can do something to save us. John and Robert, they are not really expecting for money, for a ransom money, but they were still expecting something, you know.
A rescue.
Yeah. That is a big percentage for Robert's being optimistic.
What Robert wanted was a Canadian Special Forces rescue, but that wasn't in the works. Time dragged. The kidnappers became cocky enough to actually bring in visitors.
I mean, the Abu Sayyaf, I saw some of their wives. Sometimes if they have a family day, we call family day because they have their wives, their kids.
Wait a minute, the kidnappers had a family day?
Yeah.
So they bring their families
they
to...
bring their family. I talked to the wife of the guy who did a beheading. I talked to her that can you please talk to your husband? Because of course he is our leader. Can you please talk to him that this money that they were asking, it's ridiculous. She also told me, okay, ate, I will talk to him, but I didn't trust them.
There were no concessions. Life got even more dangerous. The Philippine military seemed to be going after Abu Sayyaf. Tess remembers 9 assaults, bullets flying, and always wondering maybe they'd be freed. But no.
Sometimes we felt scared, of course, and sometimes after that fight we said, no, it's frustrating because we are still here.
Tess's memory seems accurate because the Philippine military claims it was trying to rescue the hostages, and yes, there were 9 assaults.
We were near. Many times we were able to hit the enemy, but unfortunately the kidnapped victims were not rescued because the enemy also have other tactics.
The military sent us these photos, claimed they're of some of the Philippine casualties of all those efforts for not just the Canadians, but Vietnamese hostages reportedly being held nearby. And these aren't just injuries, but deaths.
How many soldiers did you lose trying to rescue the Canadians?
Well, what I can say is that I'll give you a range. That's from 30 to 35. That range from different time operations. They lost their lives trying to rescue the kidnapped victims, the Canadian kidnapped victims.
How close exactly? Close enough, he says. It hurts to think about it.
I can generalize, tell you that it's just 100 or so, 100 or 50 meters. That close.
100 meters in the jungle can be a long way. It does seem clear, though, the military had eyes on the hostages. Intelligence reports obtained by the CBC show even early on in the kidnapping, October 11th, Philippine intelligence had already identified that 250 men were guarding the hostages, were potentially shielding them briefly at a makeshift mosque. But those hostages were kept on the move every day for months. The day before the ransom deadline for John Ridsdale, Tess says the fighting got more intense.
We've been attacked by the helicopters. So they've been panicked because they don't know what they want to do, because they told me that was the first time they were being attacked by the helicopters.
The kidnappers tried, she said, to squeeze millions out of Ridsdale's family one last time. Then he was taken away in handcuffs. Robert, believing his fellow Canadian was just going home, until the sounds of the beheading video echoed in that jungle.
Did you hear that videos? Did you hear that sounds? And Shartan said yes. So that was the time that we believed that they really killed John.
Then came the calls about Robert. Tess threatened with beatings if she didn't talk to the English-speaking negotiators.
I am appealing to the Canadian government, to the Philippine government.
She begged the kidnappers for time.
It's painful and I regret, and I still regret. Sometimes I blame myself, but my family said, don't blame yourself. It's not your fault. And I can still remember the last time we talked, Robert and I, the last time we talked, the last time I felt his hug. They wanted to bring Robert away from me. So Robert said, Tess, come on, give me a hug. So that was the last hug. And I kissed him, and they were keep telling me, stop, that's enough, that's enough. So
He managed to slip her a note for his family, and then he was gone. The details of his death she keeps locked inside. 10 days later, the unexpected, a ransom was paid for the Norwegian, and a traumatized Tess was freed.
The Government of Canada is committed to working with the Government of Philippines and international partners to pursue those responsible for this heinous act and bring them to justice.
The RCMP insists an investigation is underway. No one we spoke with has had contact with Canadian investigators, and no updates are on offer. But we've learned this. The beheader, known as Boy Tattoo, is at large. At least 2 of the other kidnappers also took part in the beheading of a German tourist last month. The names and faces well known, but they have yet to be caught.
And he was very happy taking pictures like this.
And then there's Tess, carrying the pictures and notes from Robert always. She's struggling a bit with her health and with this impulse to always look over her shoulder.
Yeah, I feel safe with you, and I hope you feel safe with me, that we can share our grief.
To get away from it all, even for a while, to be with Robert's family is what they're all pushing for.
I love you.
I love you.
I love you. I love you. Be good to yourself. Be strong.
Thank you for your love. Thank you for
Bye,
your
Tess.
love. Bye.
Nothing's easy here. There can't be a visit until there's money for the trip, and no one's been able to raise enough of that yet. So she's a bit stuck with her memories as company, the very best of them, and the ones you wouldn't want to imagine. In the days after we first told that story, the Canadian government offered Tess an extended visa. The hope is she will finally get that reunion with Robert Hall's family. There is another offensive underway in the Philippines, the war on drugs. It's resulted in the murders of thousands and the panic of so many more. When we come back, a battle as ugly as its name, Operation Double Barrel Reloaded. There is a war in the Philippines that has human rights organizations around the world furious. It's a war on drugs. Thousands of people have been killed, some executed in the street. Amnesty International wants the International Criminal Court to investigate, to hold President Rodrigo Duterte to account. But the global fury only toughens his resolve, and the body count is adding up. A warning, this is a tough thing to see unfold, so get ready for the days and nights of Operation Double Barrel Reloaded.
It's 11:05 minutes before 12 midnight.
It's a weird soundtrack to snooze by, and it's a weird place to sleep, too. The press room of the Manila police station and the photographers on the night shift who need a lot more rest than they're about to get. They're competitors who share tips,
4 kilometers from here.
share cars, watch each other's backs.
You okay?
They have to, because the murders keep happening.
Sir, may patay po, may patay na nakitang patay yun. Ha? May nakitang patay na po yun.
You get lost. Okay, who's this next victim? Who's this?
If the pack has a leader, the leader is Rafi Lerma.
When you begin to feel that sometimes there's no more killings in the past week for so many days, maybe this is stopping, right? Then this happens again.
It's been hard hunting down the stories of the more than 7,000 people killed in the Philippines drug war since last summer. Worse, he says, though, would be to look away.
I don't want that day to happen when everyone loses interest and you see no one's covering this anymore.
Or just sees it as normal.
Yeah.
My campaign against drug will not stop until the last pusher and the last drug lord are...
When the Philippines president made that promise, arguing his nation could become a narco state if drug use isn't stopped, masked men, sometimes police, sometimes just thugs, started killing with abandon. Murderers who suffocated their victims by wrapping their heads in tape, often writing pusher or addict on signs left with the bodies. When corrupt cops were exposed for some of these killings, the offensive was put on hold. But it's back. Official orders to police are to try to just arrest suspects. But the blood still flows.
Police reported ahead.
4 lights ahead. Francie's here already, and they're going to prosecute Francie. Thank you.
And it sometimes looks like this, and sounds like stunned silence. A drive-by shooting by masked men. Police quick to say they happened to find a packet of shabu or meth on the victim. Vincent Go, as much a regular as Rafi. He says you hear the claim often of finding drugs. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not.
Anybody ever held to account for these murders?
No.
Never?
Until now, no. No, that's the sad thing about it.
Do you think that the deaths are still being counted properly, or do you think... No,
I think people lost count of the killings right now.
Real numbers are suddenly hard to come by. Newspapers that once diligently tracked the deaths don't seem to anymore, and official updates on cases are rare. There certainly isn't much news on a death Vince can't shake. Is following up on this night.
And this one is Christina.
Christina Padual's death.
She was shot, she was slumped on the chair.
His photo of the moment is hard to take.
During things like this, everybody seems to be afraid to talk. They should have seen everything, but they refuse to talk to the media.
By the time he and the other photographers got to the scene, police had already announced they'd found traces of shabu on Christina. Another man nearby was shot 10 times. She was hit twice while sitting eating watermelon.
And that's her last meal. And nobody's talking, so it's really hard who was the real target. It's really hard to say who was the real target of the shooting.
Add the absence of answers to the family's pain here at her wake. The photographers keep an eye on a lot of families. Christina's is a real concern. Like most of the grieving from the drug war, they struggle to make ends meet. Which explains this. In full view of the coffin, strangers mostly, not really mourners. They've been gambling for days and nights, keep most of the winnings. Christina's family gets a small cut. For many of the poorest families, this is the only way to pay for the funeral.
So, here's the really sad math on this. In order to get her body back, Christina's father had to pay the funeral home up front about $700. That's money he really didn't have. All this fundraising from the gambling is supposed to pay for it, but the best they seem to be able to do is about $10 a day.
See that interment notice? The date has been left blank because until there's money for the funeral, the family couldn't book one. And she's already been dead a few weeks. This is where one particular photographer is a lifeline. Brother June, they call him. He does double duty, also working with the church.
He takes on a lot, this guy.
Yeah, he takes on a lot, and you usually see him asleep inside the car because he has duties during the morning in the church duties, and at night still goes out with us.
When Brother June's colleagues on the night shift explain Christina's case, The congregation at his church raised the rest of the money for the funeral. He's here to deliver it. Now they can bury her. He's also offering legal help, but the family doesn't want it.
They are afraid because they don't know who's the killer. They don't know what's the motivation.
Are they going to file a case, do you think?
No. It's not in their mind. They want to forget everything.
So there may never be answers about Cristida's death. Back at the police station, Brother June's brief chance to sleep. For the other photographers, it's a moment to really look carefully at their pictures. The closer the shot, they say, the bigger the clues they always seem to find.
His hands was bound.
Police say this man was killed because he pulled that gun. But look at the man's wrist in Rafi's picture.
It looks like cuff marks. It just looks unbelievable.
How do you pull a gun if your hands are cuffed?
See in the photo.
It's hardly a unique image in this drug war. Flip through their files, and the same scenario pops up at scene after scene.
And there's a lot of blood on the hands, both hands actually. Both hands, but look at the gun. It's clean.
When you look at this, that suggests what to you?
Well, I can say it raises a lot of questions. Who's telling the truth?
This drug war needs more understanding. It's not black and white. And they're just pushers. Kill them. No. We are humans. We have to, well, look at them as humans.
But Rafi and Vince and the others can't always make people feel what they feel. Certainly not those in charge.
The complaint is utterly baseless. You know who are afraid of the Duterte presidency? Only the criminals, the scoundrels, and the corrupt politicians. No, I'm not trying to say it. I'm saying it.
This is Salvador Panelo, President Duterte's legal advisor, in the middle of a live radio interview.
Hi there. I'm Adrienne Arsenault. Do you worry about Filipinos waking up to see an image like that?
He's seen the pictures of Cristida and the others, but isn't ready to be outraged.
But no relatives will even admit that if that woman was involved in drugs, they will never admit that. So we don't know whether it's a member of the syndicate who did that. What you hear from them is that, oh, we're poor, oh, we're innocent. But that's not true.
You don't sound terribly compassionate to people who might be poor and innocent. I mean, why is a victim any less credible than a police officer?
In the process. In other words, those are collateral damages. I mean, if they're shooting each other and then suddenly a passerby, an innocent one, poor one, dies, I don't think you can blame that to the police.
He speaks with the confidence of a man who is sure President Duterte and his drug war remain wildly popular no matter what questions get asked. And in the big picture, he's right. It's interesting because this drug war doesn't seem to be killing the drug lords, but low-level users, the poor who live in these densely populated neighborhoods. Maybe someone's killing them to keep them quiet. So you might think these places would be full of rage about Duterte, but they're not. His popularity is overwhelming. People talk of feeling safer now, even right down there at Cristida's wake. On the day of Cristida's funeral, even the woman cooking for the mourners talks about the drug war as a type of cleaning house.
Here in our place, for how many months, not so good.
Is it better now?
Oh yeah. Even if you are going here midnight, no people will with you. No people. No harassment, no ano.
So it's better. His drug war has made it better for you.
Oh, yeah.
Several weeks since they lost her, Cristida's family is finally able to bury her. Where they head to is an overcrowded cemetery crammed now with the victims of the drug war. It's a frenzy. Families colliding, crushed for space. It's hard to eke out time for rituals here. They'll lease the burial compartment for just 5 years. After that, they'll have to pay yearly to keep her body here. Many can't afford to. Cristida's cousin Bernice can't seem to take this all in.
Many drug lords. I wish that all that killed, not her, because she's so funny girl. She's so nice, and she's kind for us.
It is blazing, dizzyingly hot for all the mourners and those photographers. They are about to embark on a night that will rattle them. Finding the location of this next body isn't easy. Rafi as perplexed as everyone else, and really, he doesn't have to be doing this.
Are you technically still on leave?
Yeah. After the funeral, I gave them photos. But I didn't put my name on it, actually.
What about this cop car here?
His worried bosses have told him to get off the night beat. But he can't shake the feeling he has a responsibility to be a witness.
Okay, we'll get out.
Even when it means a moment like this. Arriving at a scene that's hard to make out at first. There's just a tiny clump on the ground near the garbage.
God, he's really little.
Yeah. He was made to kneel. See? He was made to kneel.
Yep.
Then shot in the head.
You said you think he's just 16?
Yeah, the family's over there.
He looks really young.
They said that they were searching for him for 5 days already. Then the barangay said they heard a shot here, and that's why they found him.
That 16-year-old RJ Soldao had been abducted by masked men who were really looking for his brother. His parents heard nothing about him until this night.
So now they're taking the body to the funeral parlor, and the family's going to follow.
All the silence of the night gone. After holding themselves so tight, somehow deep down thinking maybe it wasn't him, they suddenly caught a glimpse of his face. That funeral home. It's strange, those worried parents had already been here earlier in the day, had given the manager a photo of RJ in case his body appeared. This was him. If your impulse is to think the cameras have no business being here, consider some families beg the photographers to stay close. Think maybe their presence, their questions, will stop funeral homes from extorting victims' families. As disgusting as that sounds, it happens a lot. Blindingly obvious thing to say, perhaps, but it is a lot of death to absorb all night, almost every night. In the name of staying sane, the photographers have developed a ritual.
After a long day, it's like you feel having a home-cooked meal.
A meal together to close out most nights, because who can just go home without working through all they've just seen? It's a few minutes before 5 a.m.
Do you? Do you actually over dinner talk about what
Sometimes,
you saw?
yeah. No.
Maybe this looks like nonchalance. It's not. It's their everyday, and their trauma sneaks in like fatigue.
Because many of the photojournalists who've been covering this are the juniors. They're not the senior photographers, actually.
So you watch out for them a little bit.
Yeah. I could remember one photographer during this crime scene in the rail tracks. When he was covering, he was pardon my, but he was saying, putang ina, putang ina, putang ina. He was kept on repeating that. It's son of a bitch, son of a bitch, son of a bitch. And I had to snap him out of it. Huy.
Wake up.
Wake up.
For about 45 minutes they sat there, as much about therapy as that needed meal. Brother June is in a hurry. There are already families waiting for him at the church.
You're not going to bed again?
No,
Vince had to skip the meal altogether. His commute is just too long. The street sweepers are already out. Usually they're the last ones to spot the bodies from the night before and send in tips, but if they're out,
thank you,
and no one has heard anything, then it's over for all of them, for a few hours anyway. If the world is to get the truth about death in the Philippines now, it will get it from them. The Manila morning rush hour is right on schedule. Time to move, to get ahead of the living, in the name of chasing the dead. Another victim of the drug war in the Philippines, the truth. Those who criticize the killings are often accused of just lying, of spreading fake news. And sure, that insult is flung around a lot, just about everywhere these days. But the phenomenon of false news and online attacks in the Philippines is so acute, so nasty, it makes what happens in North America look almost quaint. We'll be right back. If you want a sense of the worst-case scenarios of the global fake news phenomenon, then have a look at what unfolds in the Philippines. Long before the rest of the world woke up to the practice, Filipino politicians were mastering the manipulation of public opinion with false stories and relentless online attacks that filled people's news feeds. What's the cost of faking it in the Philippines? Have a look. What's about to play out at this courthouse in Manila surely looks to some like a story of how the mighty can fall when fake news takes flight. Police keeping an eye on the crowds who are keeping an eye out for Senator Leila de Lima. Once the Justice Secretary of the Philippines, the chair of the Human Rights Commission, now she's a prisoner. This is as serious as it looks. De Lima back to jail after another court appearance, and as always, it's a frenzy. The woman who once went after drug lords is now facing charges of taking money from drug lords. She could be jailed for life. Her lawyers are certainly nervous.
What is your biggest worry for her right now? Your biggest fear?
Well, her safety, her security is our biggest concern right now. This is a test to the judicial branch of the government. This is a test case if really rule of law and due process is working here in the Philippines.
In the Philippines of Rodrigo Duterte, this should be no surprise. The president has been perfectly clear what he had planned for the woman who has publicly and persistently criticized him and his drug war.
Killing is killing, no matter what. He must be held criminally liable.
Senator de Lima, it was your greed and your immorality that did you in.
One day soon, I will bitawan ko yan in public.
If I were de Lima, ladies and gentlemen, I'll hang myself.
Obviously, Duterte cannot stand her. But does that make the allegations against her false? It's hard for Filipinos to know what to believe. Daily, they are bombarded with salacious tales about Duterte's critics, and about de Lima in particular. Obama calls de Lima abnormal. De Lima resigns. De Lima on suicide watch. Her son caught with drugs. Her sister arrested for drug trafficking. All startling stories suggesting the woman is a guilty mess. But all of them are fake, completely made-up headlines on made-up news sites. The problem is, that's not immediately obvious.
Are they both real? Are they both fake?
I think they're both fake.
It's real or it's
Yeah,
fake?
it is. About the Lima, it is. Sometimes I feel like it's fake.
A digital global survey last year found that Filipinos spend more time per day on social media than anyone else in the world, even though the internet they access is a little tricky. Your internet here on the phone, is it fast or is it slow?
Slow.
True. Mobile internet here is among the slowest and most expensive in all of Asia. So watching videos or clicking on links just eats up data. But Facebook is free. Filipinos can and do scroll through it all day long. That means seeing all those fake stories embedded in their timelines. But fact-checking those stories? Forget it. That means spending more money on more data.
Can you always tell by looking at the headline if it's real or fake?
No. You have to read the full article.
But why would you do that if it's going to cost you money to open it?
You won't open it.
What do you think this does to your democracy? All this fake news.
They can manipulate the minds of the people into believing something that is not real.
Do you think that's happening now?
Politicians have been quick to gamble that people will believe what they read. This is Rappler, a social media news outlet run by Maria Ressa. Her team has been studying online networks that were dispatched to fire up support for Duterte and shut down his critics. They found a potent trail of real enthusiasm, fake stories, and blistering attacks.
The campaign network, its first goal was to elect Duterte as president. It succeeded in doing that. By July, it had shifted. So after he won, what happens next, right? We saw several groups and people being attacked. The first group being attacked were traditional media.
The second, she says, was a series of attacks on Duterte's critics. De Lima was in the sights fast. When word leaked she was having an affair with her driver, which was true, suddenly all other accusations were painted as plausible too.
Overnight, we watched her turn from being the head of the Commission on Human Rights, the former Justice Secretary, now a senator who did quite well, to becoming a drug lord. I mean, that's how the hyperbole spread. And we watched her online get stripped of her dignity. You had a congressional hearing where senators, most of them men, joked about her love life. And this just went to extremes on social media.
Ressa and her team tracked the bulk of the pro-Duterte online campaigns to 3 core accounts that together reach millions of followers.
These were the 3 content creators.
They called their research the weaponization of the internet. And once it was published, Ressa says she started receiving 90 hate messages an hour for a month. Rape threats, death threats, lots of intimidation.
If you do not believe in us, you do not deserve to exist.
But their work and their research continues, including a look at one of the most significant pro-Duterte accounts in the Philippines.
She's the anchor account for the propaganda machine. She's the anchor account.
She's a woman named Mocha Uson, the blogger in that T-shirt showing Senator De Lima's prison picture. This is also Mocha, with her group, the Mocha Girls. She's had a curious trajectory. Sex blogger, singer, now Assistant Secretary of the Presidential Communications Operations Office. The Duterte dance is somewhat of a fixture at her concerts.
So, here's what you need to know about Mocha Uson. In the Philippines, she is huge. In a way, think of the online reach of Kim Kardashian. Now, imagine if Kim Kardashian got a job with the government. Got it? That is Mocha Uson.
Fiercely loyal to the president, has traveled with him on foreign visits, always writes in support of him to her 5 million followers. Just before the concert, we sat down in a salon across the street from the club to talk about what gets shared online and why. Hey, Mocha, I'm Adrienne. Hours earlier, she had reposted an article about Senator De Lima with a pretty extraordinary claim from the Speaker of the House.
It says the country's #1 drug lord is already jailed. And you posted this, right? This is from your account.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I shared that.
Do you really think the senator is the #1 drug lord in the Philippines?
Drug lord protector.
But that's not what that says. It says the country's #1 drug lord is already jailed.
I quoted the Speaker of the House.
Right. Do you think some people are going to read that and think, well, Mocha thinks she's the #1 drug lord in the country? It must be so.
Well, I just posted that because that's what the Speaker of the House said.
Do you believe that, though?
Oh, yes, I believe so.
You believe that she's the #1 drug lord?
Yeah, one of the big drug lords. For now, she is the #1. And I'm sticking to that.
You're sticking to that. So this is going to make a lot of people angry. It's going to divide a lot of people. A number of people are going to say this is just a flat-out lie.
Maybe, but if you read the comments, majority, they would agree.
They would agree.
That's how they feel.
As we spoke, Mocha's manager recorded the interview. By evening's end, they'd edited a chunk to music and posted it, including a part where she urged we do more research.
I think you should do more research because I am getting the feeling that you see De Lima as innocent, as an innocent person.
I don't know what
you need to do more research, ma'am, because the Filipinos know who De Lima is. So please, madam, do your research.
Hundreds of thousands of views, thousands of shares and comments, plenty of digs at us. Blind, lazy, puppets of the oligarchs, which is all absolutely fine. People can say what they want. Those who side with Senator De Lima, though, would argue the efforts to silence her are extraordinary. Human Rights Watch is clear it thinks the drug charges against her are politically motivated. But the thing is, that's just a theory. The courts have yet to decide her guilt or innocence, and until then, she's in detention. Which is where we caught up with her. No cameras, no microphones allowed, but they let us in to visit her. She's held in the same facility with some of those she once put away. It's either justice or a complete betrayal of justice.
So that took a little while. There was a mass in there of her supporters and friends. It was really for her. It happens twice a week. It's interesting. She's isolated in that jail because she's the only woman in there. The whole point of the mass, interestingly enough, was about the truth. A lot of time was spent talking about the death of truth in this culture, and they feel in this country at the moment. And she got a chance to write a quick note to that effect.
And the essence of that note? Social media must stop being an instrument of lies, deceptions, and oppression, she wrote, adding, it can truly be a powerful tool for change, genuine and positive change. Optimistic thoughts from a woman with not many reasons to be optimistic. She continues to return to court to try to get the charges thrown out, but has had no success. And there's no option for bail either. Senator Leila de Lima could be in legal limbo for years, a resolution as elusive as hard facts in the Philippines.
So a curious and maybe not terribly surprising thing happened after we first aired that story. Legions of online posters started going after not only us, but Maria Ressa, the woman who first started investigating those behind many of the online attacks. The hate and venom directed at her actually prompted a general from the Philippines Armed Forces to issue Ressa a formal apology after learning some of his soldiers were behind the online attacks. When we come back, the unexpected moments that are a little hard to forget. Between the pressure to deal with the threat from Abu Sayyaf, the global pressure about the drug war deaths, and the ongoing problem of fake news, there's a lot that's just deadly serious about the Philippines. But that is far from the full measure of this beautiful, fast-growing, young country that consistently ranks high on global measurements of happiness.
So let's mix it up a bit as we close out tonight. Have a look at what happened when we tried to launch a drone camera in a small neighborhood just outside Manila. The kids did as kids do. I'm Adrienne Arsenault. Thanks for watching.